a very warm welcome to your English news, a package with radio and television Tonga for the hour. Making headlines, the United Nations humanitarian assistance towards people living with disabilities in Tonga begins. Petroleum prices will increase tomorrow for the month of October to November, and billions of people die of hunger worldwide, but in Tonga, die from eating too much. We'll have these and more stories later on in the bulletin, together with sports to wrap up with the latest weather update. Now with the stories in details. The Tongan government is pleased to maintain a good relationship with the United Nations. The United Nations has assisted the people of Tonga, especially those most prone to natural disasters, such as people living with disabilities. Today, UNESCO launched their humanitarian cash transfer program for children living with disabilities here in Tonga. Waiwhanato Bola with more of their story.
The Honourable Minister for Internal Affairs, Lord Vaya, marked this morning at the Noa Hotel the launching of UNESCO's 1.5 million ba'anga assistance toward 750 families and 2,467 people with special needs or living with disabilities. Lord Vaya, in his address, talked about the importance of maintaining a good relationship with the United Nations.
Today marks an important chapter in the history of Tonga. Today's occasion marks the Government of Tonga and UNICEF, United Nations International Children and Emergency Fund. UNICEF and Tonga have come into an agreement after COVID-19. Tsunami and volcanic eruptions reshaped the economy, finance, social, behavior and family structure of the Kingdom of Tonga. In response to the 2019 COVID-19 border closure, non-trading and local curfews, the sudden and unpredicted 2022 tsunami and volcanic eruptions not only submerged the Kingdom of Tonga, but cut off all communication for 2 weeks. Unheard of, disowned, isolated and literally disappeared off the face of the earth. We were literally blown off the face of the earth. Indeed, we were blown away. However, we remain glued to the ocean floor, will remain a question for the future of Scientologists and geologists to bring some seismic awareness to our future behavior. Before the 15th of January 2022, the climate had been very dry. Drought, little rain, high humidity, greenery was no longer visible. Our first rain in October, 10 months since the volcanic eruptions arrived. It was a privilege to bathe in rainwater. All of the root crop was destroyed in January, and replanting was encouraged with foreign funding. Getting the local farmers back to plant, plough, sow. The island kingdom is attributed to our residing foreign dignitaries and universal organizations for their contributions to revive and fertilize our garden and household.
Lord Vaya then handed over the assistance to the children and adults living with disabilities. The United Nations estimated that 84% of Tonga were affected by the January 15th devastation and affected 36,500 children in the kingdom. The aim is to bring back normalcy to the lives of those affected, as explained by Lord Vaya. Meanwhile, foreign diplomats, people living with disabilities and distinguished guests were also present at the launch of this humanitarian cash transfer program. Waiwhanato Bola for Radio and Television Tonga News.
A recent study has shown that soil in Tonga has decreased in energy in recent years compared to past decades. This was confirmed by the CEO of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Forestry, Dr. Virami Manu. He said that this was due to more chemicals being used by the farmers in their plantations. Waiwhanato Bola again with that story.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Forestry says a group of soil scientists are currently in Tonga to determine the impact of the volcanic eruption and tsunami caused by the Tonga Hungaha volcano earlier this year. This is a follow-up research from the previous soil research that was conducted in the 1970s. Through this research, the team will try to compare the result of this year's research with the previous one to determine what chemicals or energy is added and lost in the soil. Dr. Vilamimanu told Radio Tonga News this research is based on 3 areas. First is to determine chemicals contained in the soil. Second, number of living things in the soil. And lastly, the size of the soil. He says the survey was conducted in 26 spots in Tongatapu and only 1 spot was discovered with earthworms, which is an indication that energy is decreasing. He says this is due to the population increase as well as more crops being grown using artificial fertilizers. As such, the ministry is hoping to make a decision to reduce or ban artificial fertilizers, but it will all depend on the result provided from this current survey. This survey will help the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Forestry in its operation to ensure a prosperous agricultural sector in the kingdom. The survey team is currently in Samoa and have completed work in Tongatapu and Hawaii, with hoping to reach Vava'u by this weekend. Afterwards, the soil samples collected will be sent to be tested in Australia, where samples of Tongan soil dating back to the 70s are also stored. The survey is funded by the New Zealand government in partnership with the CSIRO of Australia and facilitated by the South Pacific Community. Vaifanatu Bola for Radio and Television Tonga News.
The Tonga Competent Authority has approved the new petroleum prices for October to November, which will be effective tomorrow. The petroleum product prices for October to November will slightly increase. The mid-October 2022 price change is based on the September 2022 average of published daily mean of Platts Singapore benchmark prices for product prices and freight cost, along with the month's exchange rate. Therefore, wholesale for petrol will increase by 6.55 centi per litre, kerosene will be 10.66 centi per litre, and diesel will be 12.78 centi per litre, respectively. As a result, Tongatapu retail prices for petrol will increase to 3 pa'anga and 56 centi per litre from the current prices of 3 pa'anga and 50 centi per litre. Kerosene will increase to 3 pa'anga and 13 centi per litre, and diesel to 4 pa'anga and 11 centi per litre. While crude oil prices dropped on the month average, product prices were variable. The maritime freight rates have increased to record high, up by 29% due to limited vessel supply and ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, companies avoiding using Russian-owned tankers. The Tongan pa'anga has been steady. These factors combined result in a decrease in all product prices. If this was a normal price review, we would expect a price drop for all grades due to lower international prices. However, with the cessation of the government subsidy of 20 centi in the current month's price review, price change is compared with last month, which included a 20 centi per litre subsidy. Meanwhile, consumers are urged to continuously monitor and minimize fuel consumption, whether in using your vehicle's electricity and electronic devices, to avoid increasing costs of fuel consumption during these difficult times. And during the commemoration of World Food Day last Friday, Dr. Ofatugia from the Ministry of Health says the billions of people from the regions of Africa and other countries where poverty exists, people die as a result of hunger, but in Tonga, people die from eating too much food. World Food Day is usually celebrated on the 16th of October every year, but this year it falls on a Sunday, and that's why it was commemorated on Friday the 14th. The theme for this year is Leave No One Behind, better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better quality of life. Dr. Ofatugia says that according to a health expert, food consumption can be good for the body and can also be a toxic chemical that slowly harms the body, like NCDs. She adds that the idea of this year's theme, as it related to food, aims to fight against hunger because it is a worldwide problem. A joke has been spreading in Tonga saying that it is better to die with a full stomach than an empty stomach, but to be honest, they are just the same if you die with a full stomach or an empty stomach, because a life is lost. Those problems can be solved if people chose the types of food to eat wisely, like healthy food to prevent NCDs. It also includes when our body is not active or whether we are smoking and drinking alcohol. According to a report from the Health Ministry, around 75 to 80% of people in Tonga die from NCDs like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and other diseases that affect the respiratory system. It is sad to see that as time goes by, the people that died every year is 80% or more within the ages of 40 to 60, and they don't reach their biblical age of 70 years and above. Dr. Ofatugia explained the right types of food that people should eat to minimize NCDs. People should understand and have enough knowledge to help them with their decision making to choose foods and suit the environment, like foods that have less sugar, fatty foods, and food with more energy that the body needs, like local products. There is a national guideline for the process of eating food and healthy lifestyle, which the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Forestry, Ministry of Health and Food and Agricultural Organizations, or FAO, worked together to create. This handbook was gazetted and approved to be used in previous months and will be handed over to the public to use. Dr. Dogia also says the Ministry of Health is looking to set up a law to regulate the marketing of foods that are not healthy for children. The Health Ministry is concerned that many children are overweight or obese nowadays due to poor food choices. Obesity is the transparency of not choosing the right food for consumption, and that is the main reason for causing NCDs. If we don't do anything today, it will increase in the future. Dr. Ofatugia hopes that related stakeholders will work together in enforcing the guidelines that the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Forestry has established in order to have safer food and build a sustainable Tonga with healthy people with no one left behind. That's our local news with Radio and Television Tonga for the hour. Sports is up next with Mark Ake, and it is kindly sponsored by Pacific Timber and Hardware. Welcome back to sports. From a rugby league, Christian Wolf named star started the Tonga squad, including ex-Warrington Wolfsmen and Huddersfield Giants star as St. Helens duo overlooked. Christian Wolf has named his 19-man squad for Tonga's first game of the World Cup, which comes against Papua New Guinea at Wolves' old stomping ground of St. Helens, a totally rigged stadium. The two Saints players in the squad don't find their way into the 19. Conrad Harrell is left out despite scoring against France last week in a warm-up fixture, whilst Will Hoboate continues to manage injuries. Huddersfield Giants fullback Tui Lolohea is the only Super League-based player in Tonga's 19-man squad and likely to play in the house, having been given the number 7 jersey, whilst ex-Warrington and Salford forward is also in the 19-man squad and stands a good chance of playing. The Tongans are without skipper Jason Daumalolo, so Catalan's bound forward Sesiwa Taukeaha will captain the side. David Tufita of Gold Coast Titans is almost quarantined to play after a hat-trick last week against France. Tonga and Papua New Guinea will clash at 7:30 p.m. this Wednesday and will be broadcasted live on Radio and Television Tonga. However, here is the full squad. Fullback Dolta Ugola, wingers Daniel Dubois and Sonika Toa, centers Moses Esuli and Will Benzini, stand-off Talatau Amone, halfback Duimoala Lolohea, in the props aiding for Noah Blake and Captain Siosiwa Tauke Aho. Hook Sonny Luke, second rowers Kion Kolomatangi and Felice Kaufusi, and Haumole Olakau Atu at lock. In the reserves include David Tatatola, Moyaki Fotaika, David Fifita, Ben Murdoch Masila, Isaiah Katoa, and Sosifa Talakai. The World Cup kicked off yesterday morning with host England smashing Toa Samoa with 60-6. Defending champions Australia beat Fiji with 48-8. Italy over Scotland 28-4. Ireland over Jamaica 48-2, and the Kiwis over Lebanon 34-12. And from netball, the Dala have continued to show their dominance in the World Netball after they beat the Fijian Pearls 74-55 in their opening game of the second Pacific Ocean Netball Series at the Sunshine Coast in Australia last night. The victory acts as a reminder to all teams in the series that the Dala are the defending champions. In the first quarter, Tonga led 19-10. In the second quarter, their lead went up to 35-24, then 58-36 in the third quarter, before ending the game 74-55. The current standings has the Dala on top, with USSC Thunder at second, Diva Samoa third, Australian Pathway fourth, Papua New Guinea's fifth, and Fiji at sixth place. The Dala have yet to lose a single game all year. However, Tonga will face Papua New Guinea tonight at 9 p.m. and will be broadcasted live on radio and television Tonga. And that's sports news. Now with the latest weather update issued from Tonga's Met Office at Fort Amato.
Welcome to our weather forecast for today. From the current weather situation, 8-week trough lies over Tongatapu and Ewa, associated clouds with scattered showers for Ha'apai, Tongatapu and Ewa this evening and tonight. Meanwhile, an easterly wind flow prevails over all of Tonga. Forecast for tomorrow: for the New West and Vava'u, light to moderate easterly winds, fresh at times over the New West. Mainly fine apart from cloudy periods with isolated showers. For Ha'apai, Tongatapu and Ewa, light to moderate east to northeast winds, mostly cloudy with scattered showers, heavy at times with possible isolated thunderstorms. Becoming fine about tomorrow. Lowest temperature for tonight will be around 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. Highest temperature for tomorrow will be around 28 to 30 degrees Celsius. From the Marine Weather Bulletin, here is our forecast midnight tomorrow for Tonga coastal waters. For the New West coastal waters, easterly winds 10 to 15 knots, then rising up to 20 knots at times. Slight to moderate seas up to 2 meters. For the rest of Tonga coastal waters, east to northeast winds 10 to 15 knots. Slight to moderate seas up to 1.5 meters. From the tide predictions, high tide will be at Warabas 1 a.m. tonight, low tide will be at Waradu 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Sun and the moon, sunrise will be at 7 minutes past 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, moonrise will be at 20 minutes past 1 a.m. tonight. From the 6 days forecast from Nuku'alofa, light north winds and variable at times, then become light and strong southeast winds for Saturday to Monday next week. Cloudy with occasional showers for Thursday until Sunday this week, and mainly fine for Wednesday and Monday next week. Maximum temperature will be around 26 to 29 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature will be around 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity will be 80 to 95%.
And that concludes tonight's English news package. But before we part, here's one final look at tonight's top stories. The United Nations humanitarian assistance towards people living with disabilities in Tonga begins. Petroleum prices will increase tomorrow for the month of October to November, and billions of people die of hunger worldwide, but in Tonga die from eating too much. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for your company. I'm Alice Dubo. Have a blessed evening.